Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
And in this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, well, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hello, my beautiful friend. It's Christy here. Just quickly wanted to pop on here and let you know that my book, Love Life Sober, a 40-Day Alcohol Fast, is now available for order. I will stick a link for you in the show notes. But if you want to head to lovelifesober40dayfast.com, you can get it there on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, pretty much everywhere. I'm really, really thrilled to share this with you, and I cannot wait for you to read it. Thanks.
Okay, babe, tell us what you were just going to say. I cannot believe that we have not ever talked about this. Hello? And it's just so obvious. But then when I brought it to you, you were like, wait, no, I didn't know this. Okay, y'all, my name is Mead. Mead is a honey ale that monks used to drink.
What?
Yes. Yeah, freaking honey flavored beer. Yes. So I went out, so I pulled up the old search engine here and typed it in. And so I want to read it the way that it says exactly what it is. Mead is a fermented alcoholic beverage made from honey, water, and yeast, and is sometimes called honey wine. It can be still, carbonated, or naturally sparkling. It can range in alcohol content 3.5% to up to over 20%. It's gluten-free and can be aged for months or years. It's possibly the oldest alcoholic beverage in the world, with some evidence suggesting fermentation predates both wine and beer, and it's been enjoyed, I'm putting in air quotes, you guys, by many cultures throughout history, including the Vikings, Mayans, Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. Yeah, and this is the funniest part that it pulled up on the little searchy thing that I did. It's associated with many magical powers, including immortality, divine strength, divine wit. It's also sometimes referred to as the nectar of the gods. That last part, obviously, is a bunch of just malarkey, such BS. But yeah, go.
I just have so many. I want to know how your parents found the name and if they knew that's what the name meant, or was like just it was in the family. What do you mean? Tell me.
Yeah, it's just a family name. So yeah, I don't think that they purposely named me after honey wine. But it's funny how often I get, and it's usually older men who I run into, whatever, and they're like, "Do you know that your name means this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, I have heard that." So it's just, I just was having this moment when we were like thinking about our episode today and the title, and I'm like, have we talked about how my name is actually like a honey ale, honey wine? It's a fermented alcoholic beverage that monks used to drink. And here we are, Nita's talking about what she's talking about here.
It's so funny, but also when you were describing it, I feel like it would taste really good non-alcoholic.
Why do we have to add alcohol to beverages? That's the part. Yeah, that's the question. Because back in the day, they had to, right, to make it sanitary because water wasn't sanitary.
Yeah.
And they needed alcohol to make the honey, and you could mix it with hops and spices, and you add water to it. You've got to make it so that you don't get sick and die, right? Way back thousands of years ago, but we don't need to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not know that, babe.
I know. And it's actually truthfully spelled MEAD and not MEADE, which is my name. So, which to me, it just looks funny. Like it looks naked without that E on the end. But
Yeah.
anyhow, just a little trivia for you gals
I
today.
love that. I don't think we've ever like started an episode with trivia, but maybe we're feeling like a little trivia because it's Friday today. Actually, it's Monday for you if you're listening to this on Monday, but like it's Friday for us. And
Trivia Friday?
I don't know.
There's no, alliteration there. Trivia on Thursday? I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know. Okay, so let's
We're here to dazzle you with our trivia. No, we're not.
also for anybody that is watching us on YouTube, as I said to Mead before we hit record, my sweet hairstylist has been sick, so I'm sorry that you're having to look at these roots. They are intense. I wore a baseball cap to our last meeting because I couldn't handle it, but we are going to live with it today.
No, I thought you were gonna give a shout out to your cute golf top. And I'm also wearing a golf top. Yes. That kind of goes with Friday. Yes. So basically, I look like an 85-year-old woman with my roots and my golf top today. But you have a disco mic. So you're still really young and hip and cool. Okay. This mic, y'all, we don't want you to go to YouTube. Here's the deal. We really don't want you to go to YouTube. We don't. We want you to listen on the podcast. But this microphone, it Christy got a new microphone. So
I needed to bring a little like jazz and jazz hands to the pod.
the new house has her in this white, sterile corner.
I'm
room.
gonna fix that. I'm gonna fix that. I was on the phone with a client. I found the phone on the Zoom with a client yesterday who literally is an interior designer and knows my balloon wallpaper from the old house, and she's sending me a panel. She's like, "Let's talk to you without the balloons behind you." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, we need to like zhuzh up this area.
With the zhuzh.
In the meantime, Christy has purchased a new mic in hopes of sounding better audio wise, but it also serves as just a beautiful disco ball.
I didn't even realize, you guys, that it did this light up action, this Disney electrical parade situation. I just literally picked the highest rated thing on Amazon because I was so mortified, as I told you, because I was going on these podcasts to talk about the book. And I'm like talking with these people that are in like big proper studios with like producers listening. And every 5 minutes they're like, no, that mic, no, you gotta. And I was just mortified. So I just panicked and bought the first Amazon find. And now it is the Disney Electrical Parade in the studio, our little studio.
Yeah. I feel like that's how I purchased my mic that I've now had to send back multiple times to. It wasn't something that gave a lot of thought to. And though it's not like lighting up, I'm not sure the audio is that great anyways. But podcast goals one day, hashtag studio real legit.
We are real and we are legit. And we're going to be talking about a really awesome topic, I think, today, because this is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're totally good. I was inspired because I've heard a lot of gals recently just on the like road to freedom, right? And they're desperately trying to break free from alcohol and they're doing all the right things, but it doesn't feel good yet. And
Yeah.
so they throw in the towel early, or they give up, or they go 30 days and they're like, nope, this is not what it was all cracked up to be. I'm going back and all this stuff. And so today I wanted to talk about becoming free versus being free and the difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
I think this is so good because I think when you find freedom from alcohol and like really how this podcast even came to be, I was like, we want to have conversations about things that we like talking about. We're excited. This is freedom from alcohol journey. We're noticing these things that are different and great. And we're like, oh my gosh, everybody has to know how amazing it is to live free from alcohol. And so we can focus a lot on what is so great about being free from alcohol. And maybe that's where there's some confusion, where it's just not automatically, magically, all of a sudden amazing. There is, and it looks different for everybody. And we can talk about our differences because our journeys were different. But yeah, if you're in it and you're like, I'm doing the things, and how often do we see this with women we coach? Like, you got to stick with it because it's not just, okay, I'm not going to drink now. And yes, and now I'm sticking with it and sticking with it. I'm practicing, but like, when is that actual freedom coming?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about then what it feels like becoming free, AKA detoxing, AKA healing, and just really getting all the alcohol out of your system. I think it's so important to remind ourselves and our beautiful readers that it takes about 7 to 10 days, right, for the alcohol actually to get out of your system. And that includes 1 or 2 drinks. And that is just so important because not only is breaking free from alcohol like hard on a mental, emotional level, but we're also dealing with all the physiological ramifications of detoxing from alcohol. And so this takes some time and it's different for everybody. And we have to caveat all of this whole conversation, as you already said, with this is different for everybody. And so I'll just say what my kind of beginning felt like. So I know I've talked about the fact that like my sleep went from being like really horrible, obviously as a drinker,
to I slept like a dead person for a few weeks. And then I had like very sporadic, all over the place sleep. And it took a few months to settle. And I don't know about you, but that's what I also hear from a lot of gals. It's like almost one or the other, right? It's either sleep is amazing, oh my gosh, this is life changing, or it hasn't changed. I might as well go back to drinking. And so that's really why I wanted to do that this episode also is just stick with it, right? Persevere, like it does get better. What was your I know we've talked about this a little bit, but
Yep.
what was your sleep like? I just want to caveat what you just said, Chew, with you have been free from alcohol from the day that you woke up and you were like, I'm not doing this anymore. And so like
Mhm.
you drew the like hard line in the sand. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not drinking anymore. And so you did go through like the physical removal of alcohol from your life and then having to go through that like physical detox so that like our bodies are when we have just been regular drinkers, our bodies are chemically used to different levels of things and adjusting in a certain way. And it's gotta recalibrate after we take a break from alcohol when we get it out of our systems. But so there was that like that physical kind of detoxing journey for you. Whereas like for me, I took breaks. And so I can relate to what you're saying. But the day that I was like, I'm never drinking again, I was free mentally, emotionally, psychologically free too. And so I never drank from that point on because I had found freedom and all those other there's different I wanted to like caveat that because I think there are again, we all have different ways of what our journey looked like for us. And like when I was doing my 30-day breaks from alcohol, when I was trying to figure it out, I was someone who immediately noticed the difference physically. Like I was sleeping better, I wasn't as irritable, everything. I felt my skin like it was just like instant. I had all those physical benefits, but I was still miserable mentally, emotionally because I didn't want to be not drinking. I was
Yeah.
and so that was the harder part for me. Yeah, no, that's totally see what you're saying. And I feel like for me too, with the mental emotional was I just know I need to stop drinking, but I didn't know 100% what that meant yet. And
Mhm.
so I definitely still had the cravings. I definitely still had to work on all of that. Yeah. But there was also this just, like, physical feeling of I, like, equated it to because I've done, like, the trip from London to LA so many times, this just, like, intense jet lag, and it lasted for a while. Like, I wanna say I felt pretty jet lagged for 6 to 8 weeks where I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I could nap any given moment, even if I had a really good night's sleep. And when you hear us talking about all the energy that we have now that we're alcohol free, if you haven't felt that yet because you feel like totally down in the dumpster, just stick with it. Just stick with it because it is coming. And
Yeah.
this is going to look different for everybody. And I feel like we can't not have this conversation without saying that if you are within our age bracket, if you are a woman who's 35 to whatever, 55, I don't know. Also, if you're doing this and you're focusing on your health, get your hormones checked because also have coached gals who have been like free from alcohol and they're in perimenopause. And so they don't necessarily understand why they're feeling so much better, but they maybe need to have your hormones checked.
Yes.
And so that's a really important part of this whole conversation of becoming free and healthy versus what it really feels like to feel free from alcohol. And especially if you are someone who's regularly drinking, like there could be hormonal imbalances happening that are just being masked by like the symptoms that would come as a result of having hormonal imbalances are just being masked by the alcohol and our body's amazing ability to adapt to what we do
Or made
or
worse. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
made worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not able to even pinpoint. But to your point, taking the alcohol, if we go into this mindset of, okay, I've heard how amazing life is without alcohol and I've done that and I feel worse, like how terrible of a place would that be? Because why am I doing this? And that's the whole emphasis for the whole episode, right? It's no, that part is coming, but in removing the alcohol, it's you're trying to find your body's trying to find a new level set way of being. And with that might come discoveries of, oh, there is this imbalance in hormones. It literally, I would say, if you haven't done it for, I would say 60 days, I like to say 60 days, totally free from alcohol, like physically free, like not touched a sip, a drop in 60 days. And that sounds like really a long time, but if you have gotten it out of your system in 60 days, I haven't heard of anyone who isn't feeling tremendously better at that point. It happens a lot sooner for a lot of people, but it also is influenced by that mindset that you go into it. And I think that's where I feel especially like responsible in a way. I want to make sure I'm not misrepresenting too that freedom from alcohol is not rainbows and unicorns. Yeah, the minute you decide to do it, like it in different ways, it takes work.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm gonna caveat your I'm not gonna
Keep you caveating.
totally 100%, but it might be 90 days. Right? You
Yes.
don't know. It totally depends how
Yes.
you're drinking. It totally depends on how many growth points you're having along the way. It totally depends on what other things you're adding to your life, right? Are
Absolutely.
you eating better? Are you resting better? Are you joyfully moving your body better? All of that stuff. And so that's not to say that when you start this journey, you have to do
Mhm.
1,001 health goals. I'm so anti all of that, as everybody knows, like one thing at a time, especially with alcohol. But it depends on a variety of factors, and just stick with it. One of the things I think that takes a slower burn, right? And we've talked about this on other episodes too, is like finding your joy again, right? If the only thing that you feel like brings you any sort of happiness or joy is something where you have a glass of wine in your hand, like it is going to take a lot of time in order to figure out what lights you up and figure out how to bring your dopamine like back to baseline and experience normal levels of dopamine as opposed to those really high artificial levels of dopamine that come from drugs and alcohol. And so that can take time. The whole just being mentally clear because you're not fighting with cravings and should I and shouldn't I and all of that stuff.
Mm.
And you guys, we did a great episode. I looked it up. Episode 10, cravings. That it's such a good episode. That also takes a while. So there is stuff, there's work to do now, but it doesn't feel like that forever. It doesn't feel like that forever.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about it from just like the habitual component of the drinking, like those how many times was my grabbing the glass of wine just out of that's what I did at this time of day, or that's what I did in this setting, or that's what I did in this instance. It was so habitual, just like it is that I don't have to think very hard about getting in my car and driving because I've practiced driving. As the mom of a teenager who's teaching her child how to drive, I'm like, this stuff is so automatic to me because I've been doing it for a really long time. It's so practiced. Driving is so practiced. Grabbing the glass of wine, opening the bottle of wine, I was so practiced. And so, with all of those laid down habits and the ritual around it, it takes time to disrupt that and create new ones. And so if you're in this space where you're like, I'm doing the right things, like I'm paying attention to my thinking and I'm nourishing my body, I'm moving my body, I'm doing these things that help support this, but I'm also like not feeling a whole lot better. You've got to build reps, practicing the new way of doing it because otherwise your brain, when it gets to that tired point of day or when it's overly stressed or whatever, it's going to just resort to whatever that easiest old conditioned way is. So, patience with disrupting that habit and practicing laying down the new tracks
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
so good. It's so good because if you're in the sober curious space and you're on you're on social media or whatever you're doing and you're seeing a lot of like people that are shouting about the benefits, the benefits are true, but I think it's so important that we make sure that we remind people that it is hard work. And if you're feeling like it's hard work, like we totally get you and we have been there and we know how it feels and we promise you. I actually did a post a few weeks ago and I said, if you're more than 6 months alcohol free,
what would you say to someone at the start? And literally the repeated comments over and over again was just keep going, it gets better. Just keep going, stick with this, it gets better. Best is yet to come. There was a lot of that. And so I think it's just so important for us to remind you guys that like we are with you. We have been there and we know it's hard, but it does get better. It does get better. And pay attention to the things that don't feel necessarily good and explore that discomfort and figure out why you're feeling that discomfort. One of the things I talk a lot about in my coaching is just like that building discomfort tolerance back up. I was hoping you were going to go there. Good, because I'm like, do I go there? I always go there, but maybe it's been a minute. But one of my favorite tactics for practicing this new way of being without alcohol in your life, being free from alcohol, is to start becoming tolerant to being uncomfortable. And so, like, I will challenge folks to take 5 minutes and set a timer and sit. And you're not going to do anything and you're not going to have any music on and you're going to sit in silence for 5 minutes. That's all you have to do to, or like some people, maybe they have to start at 1 minute or they have to start at 2 minutes, whatever you think is achievable. But the more you practice that, you're training yourself away from that habitual automatic response to I'm uncomfortable in some way, shape, or form right now. And this is what the signal to the brain that, like, this is what we do when we're uncomfortable, whether it's I need this thing. And so I'm going to just pop on Amazon Prime and have that on my doorstep right away. It's that immediate gratification thing that we can do. And it's the same thing, the same mechanism there when we grab the wine. Like, that is the track that is laid down. So start by just setting a timer for 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes and sit, nothing. And then over time, you can build this practice where like you're actually paying attention to your thinking and taking your thoughts and putting them down on paper. You can build up to that. People always talk about meditation in the sobriety space. So helpful. But meditation is really hard to start with if you're not used to even just sitting without something that's distracting you from maybe the discomfort you feel. And if you can, once you make it that 5 minutes or the 2 minutes or the 1 minute, then you celebrate. Oh my gosh, I said it's not going to seem like a really big deal, but I promise you that little tiny action, that tiny Tina in setting that timer and setting and the signal that goes to the brain that like I can do this, I did do this, it was survivable, it wasn't that bad. Over time, it's 5 minutes feels like 30 seconds and then extend it and so on. And so building that tolerance for just sitting and being uncomfortable, putting that pause in before we automatically hit that. I always say the easy button for me, like from that commercial of office supply stuff where it was like, here, let's just hit the easy button
It was
here.
Staples.
It was Staples. I wasn't sure if we were allowed to say that. So I didn't
Well, didn't it
say
go
it.
out of business?
I don't know. Did it? Probably. Yeah, that's fine then. We're fine. But like it's that easy button. And so yeah, like that was something that was huge for me when I started my freedom from alcohol journey was it was y'all have heard me say this before. I would get in the car to drive to work and before I turned on the radio, before I called the radio, before I called anybody, before I did anything, I had to drive in silence for 5 whole minutes. And it
Yeah.
changed things. It
Responding to the heartfelt requests from you, our wonderful, wonderful listeners, for a deeper sense of community, we are so excited to introduce y'all to the But Jesus Drink Wine community.
Get ready to be part of an exclusive experience where you'll join a sisterhood of kindred spirits on a transformative journey of faith, sobriety, and personal growth.
You'll gain access to our private community, a place where deep connections can flourish among women who share your aspirations of strengthening faith in Christ and breaking free from alcohol.
But wait, there's more! We'll host regular connection calls to facilitate fellowship with like-minded gals, no matter where you stand on your alcohol or faith journey. Whether you're seasoned or just curious, you are very warmly welcomed here.
Prepare to be inspired by guest expert sessions and engaging Q&As that explore the essential topics for your sobriety, faith, and holistic wellness journey.
Don't miss out on securing your spot. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
We can't wait to see your beautiful face in the But Jesus Drink Wine community.
I love that. I love it so much. It's so good. And you know what? It's just, again, not what we're taught to do. We're not used to any of it. We're not used to sitting with emotions. We're not used to feeling emotions. We're not used to like thinking about our thoughts, any of this. And so this is big stuff that you end up like putting in your arsenal of life practice that stems out of this freedom from alcohol journey, which is so incredibly cool. And I was really going to try to not mention practicing the way. Do it. Just geeking out. Okay, you guys, we have to have him on the podcast. We just have to have John Mark Comer on the podcast because we are both obsessed with his book, Practicing the Way. And when I finished the book this morning and I was just like, this is the perfect, like, all the things for this episode because for me, ditching alcohol, and I said this the other day in the community call, ditching alcohol was like one of the very first steps on like my journey to attempting to become more like Jesus, right? And being molded and being shaped and being the woman that he wants me to be. It was just the very beginning. And so it might be the first stop on your journey as well, right? I don't know. But the point is, it's a journey. The journey path adventure process. Journey path adventure that takes practice. And it takes putting in the time and effort, and it takes like doing, not just like talking about, right? Like you can listen to all the Quit Lit books and you can listen to all the podcasts. You can listen to this podcast 100 times, but if you don't actually put down the wine glass and start actually looking at why you're drinking and doing the stuff that we've been talking about, like you're not going to end up getting any of the benefits, right? You've got to practice. But it's a journey, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get him on this podcast because I'm obsessed with him. That book is, it's so, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And there's so many parallels. We'll have to do a episode on that, the freedom from alcohol journey and the journey to becoming more like Jesus. Like it's so different in the way that when I was stuck in the drinking cycle, how different my Christianity, so to speak, was for how it is now. But I heard this just triggered my mind the other day. I was like, people that never start drinking alcohol will never become addicted to alcohol. If you never drink alcohol, you cannot become addicted to it. And I was thinking about that in terms of there are so many resources in this space of sobriety / freedom from alcohol. And there are all these things we can do that helps us on our journey, and that it's all valuable. It's all, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it is. But in order to really find freedom from it, we can't be drinking it. Like that's where that, I don't know if that makes sense. No, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. What you just said. Yeah. You have to put down the wine glass. Like you have to at some point walk away from alcohol. If you do not want to be addicted to it, if you do not want to be imprisoned by it, it has to be removed. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's such a good point, babe, because if we're talking about becoming free on this journey and you're listening to this right now and you're feeling like uber stuck, and yet you've listened to every single podcast and you've read every single Quit Lit, this is going to be hard and heavy. But it's that one thing, right? It's putting down the one thing. And it's such a cheesy meme, but it's like sacrificing one thing for, or what does it say? For all the things. You're gaining everything. You gain everything. But you do have to do that one thing. You've just gotta take a break with grace and self-compassion. Yeah. Yeah. And the other point of what I just said too is that means it's not your fault.
Yeah.
If it was, an addictive substance is going to take up more space in your life over time by nature of the fact that it's an addictive substance. So you don't have to be full blown in addiction. I wasn't in full blown addiction, what you would consider addiction or in the recovery space, so to speak. We talked about this recently. Like we were ones that got off the hamster wheel earlier. You don't have to let it get to that place where then it is okay, white knuckle, force myself to never every single day think I can't do this. We can start that now by saying like, also hard line in the sand. I'm not having this in my life anymore. And I'm going to stick with it. And I'm going to follow these, and I'm going to use these tools. And I'm going to use these tactics. And I'm going to practice this new way of doing things. And eventually it becomes the automatic way we do things because of all of the benefits that then throw all of this momentum behind it. Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. It just, God made our brains so incredibly amazingly in that they can be changed, right? We can change habits. Like we actually can change neuroplasticity. Like our brains can rewire, we can form new habits, but it does take time and it does take practice, but it is coming. It is coming. And I think the mental clarity and the mental freedom, which is something probably potentially the biggest piece of this, the biggest gift that people, myself included, didn't realize how profound it was when you're not having all of your time or headspace hijacked by alcohol, when you're not thinking about it, when you're not thinking about recovering from it, when you're not thinking of how you can factor it into your day so that you can make sure that everyone's home safe and you don't have to drive and all of that stuff. Like when that clears, it is just wait for it and just take our word for it. I always say, don't go try it for yourself, but go try it for yourself, but also take our word for it that it is it's an incredible feeling. And it is something that I hear so often from clients when they come back and I say, what was the biggest impact? And it's that clarity piece. And so if you haven't felt that yet, keep going. Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the easiest places to start with this is to check your mindset going into this is okay, I've heard about all of the benefits. I want those benefits. But also I'm doing this because I really am coming from a place of curiosity. Could my life be better without alcohol versus have to do this because I have to do this and I want to experience those benefits and I want to experience them now? Like those are two different like patterns of thinking that set a different kind of course for it. So the one way of I'm curious what my life could be like without alcohol, already just turning to curiosity is going to help you feel better in looking at your day and where alcohol fits into it or not. Okay, like I'm going to go into this evening with, I'm just curious. I'm going to be curious about this. I'm going to be open about this. How will I ever know this could be better or not? I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to see. I'm going to keep collecting this data that says, okay, yeah, no, like this is better. I'm going to keep training my mind towards what I am receiving as a benefit. So maybe those physical benefits aren't coming yet. And those are the things that you're really most looking forward to. Challenge you to find what you are experiencing as a result. If you are not drinking alcohol right now, I promise you there are things that are happening in your life that are available to you right in this very minute that are not available to you when alcohol is in your system. Look for them, seek them out. Your mind is trained towards the lack because you're removing it. Focus on what am I gaining? Because I promise you that the examples will be boundless. You just have to look for them too. And that's the other part of this, which is such a big part of it, is the mind, how the mind plays into your experience going alcohol free and then eventually finding freedom. Yeah, that's so good. It's such a good reminder. I wrote a chapter in the book about the health benefits and a lot of the things that we cannot see in the very beginning, like liver regeneration and white matter in the brain that like starts to regenerate. All that stuff is stuff that, of course, you can't see and you might not even be able to feel, right? But it just ends up having such a huge, obviously, impact on your overall health. I had a client that she was like, "I had no idea. I've never read this. I've never heard this, but her eczema, like, just cleared up when she stopped drinking." Yeah, it was wild. I believe it. Yeah, and so you just and I've also had clients who really honestly believed that they had really bad, like, IBS, really bad, like, stuff in their stomachs, and it just totally cleared up. So you never know. Like, you never know. It's gonna be different for everybody. Yeah, and maybe it's as simple at first too as just, okay, like what money did I save today? But and maybe it's taking the money that you would have spent on alcohol that day, that $20 bottle of wine or whatever it is, putting that in a little win jar and just seeing that accumulate. That's where it's okay, no, see, there is some benefit to what I'm doing. So the things that I'd like to see, okay, maybe I haven't experienced them yet, but here are the things that that I am seeing, that I am experiencing as a benefit. I'm saving money. I'm whatever. I'm going to bed earlier. Oh my gosh, can we get an amen about how much earlier you go to bed when you're not stuck in that drinking cycle? Like being able to choose bedtime and say, you know what, I'm actually register that we're tired and instead of going for that next glass of wine and staying up later than we need to, you know what? I'm tired, so I'm just gonna actually go to bed. That is a win. That is something that you're already experiencing that is not available to you if you are stuck in the drinking cycle, if you're drinking alcohol. So celebrate those things. That's why I love the just looking for those little pops as proofs of progress. And that's why it's helpful to have people help call those out for you and help you see where those are, because those are the things that are hard to see. We want those big changes to happen right away. We want to see those. And that is motivating, but it's the little things that add up that all add together, where you can get to this point where like we are, where you literally could not pay me to even take a sip of alcohol. There's no, like everything on this side is a million times better. Even the stuff that's hard is a million times better without alcohol. Yeah. So good. So good. I just feel like this is a perfect time to talk about community, because if you feel like you're feeling if you're like nodding along, or if you're shaking your head and being like, these chicks do not know what they're talking about, tell us about it. Tell us about it, or tell the amazing, incredible gals in our community about it, because they will resonate with your story. Someone in there feels exactly like you do. If we're not describing how it's feeling for you or how this journey has felt, like there are other women that have. We were just talking to Caroline, right, Beidler, about how feels like we're really different, but we're actually really the same, especially when it comes to this, especially if you're in the category of a woman that was stuck in the gray area drinking cycle. Girl, you're not alone, right? Yeah. Yeah. And generally, the people that are actively stuck in the drinking cycle are not the people you're seeing on Instagram or or you're hearing from on podcasts, because they're actively stuck in the drinking cycle, which is the beauty of having a space, a community space where you can be around those people. And that was the whole impetus for, I've used the word impetus twice in this podcast.
Wow, I didn't notice.
Yeah. And I don't think I've used it in probably 20 years, but I've apparently used it twice in one podcast. Happens like that, right? Where you're just like, why am I using that word so much? Yeah. But that was the impetus for this podcast, like having the conversations about these things and then expanding that conversation in community so that we can invite other people into this conversation that we're having. That's what we're doing over there. And those are the conversations that we want you to be a part of. People who are actively right now working through being stuck. Yeah. Yeah. So good. So the moral of the story is keep going. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Philippians 1:6, he who began a good work is faithful to complete it. I think I got it mostly right. I did. And what's our Tiny Tina? I actually really liked your sit with your feelings, sit in the silence as the Tiny Tina. Will you do that for a Tina? Yeah, your Tiny Tina, should you choose to accept it, is to set that timer. Let's do it, ladies. I'm not even going to say do 1 or 2 minutes. I know you can do it. 5 minutes. Set your timer for 5 minutes. Quiet, still, doing nothing. I want you to sit on your sofa in your living room with no TV, no noise, no people, nothing around you. And I want to I want you to just sit there and breathe. Focus on your breathing. That's a great way to get through the discomfort of just sitting in stillness and silence. Just focus on your breathing. How do I know I'm breathing? Where's my breath? Do that for 5 minutes. And when that timer goes off, I want you to reflect on what that experience was like for you. Was it super hard? Was it super long? Was it miserable? And then mark that down, because then you can do it again tomorrow and you can see. And then this is a way that it's like, that's where you start to see that like kind of momentum build. It gets easier. And such as the same for the freedom from alcohol journey. It's that kind of little tiny stuff that adds up over time and gets easier and easier. So start there, my friends.
I love that. Keep going, gals. It does get easier.
We love you too.
We love you all. Thank you so much for listening. Let us know if this encouraged you, if you're in the community. If you're not in the community, send us a message, a DM, an email, however you want. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrinkwine.com, and be sure to follow us over on Instagram, Love Life Sober, and I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites, meethollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe to our pod so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you, and we'll see you next Monday.